Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the NFL Draft Triple Take presented by UPMC. Mike Prisuta, Dale Lolley, and Matt Williamson. We've still got the pedal down. We are still plowing through the prospects to get you as ready as possible for the NFL Draft. Only the Steelers scouts, guys, are going to be more prepared than the people who have been with us since day one, and that's only if they've been among the people who have been with us.
Diligent about it. They have to watch them all, not just the first take, but the second take as well.
And the second take, as you may or may not know by now, if you don't, this will be news to you, that the second take is not a top five at the position. It's a riser, faller, and sleeper. Just trying to get the conversation a little more nuanced and maybe throw some more names out there for discussion than you would get in a standard top five. I noticed that Dale and Matt, who conspire on the drive on SNR and have conspired to be in complete agreement more often than not on these programs. Both of you guys are in agreement on your riser. Who would like to take the floor first to discuss the great TRAVON Walker?
Go ahead, Matt, since we apparently share a brain.
Yeah, and I'm going to call kind of an audible here, too. I mean, I think this one's just so obvious with TRAVON Walker, and I'll let Dale talk about him mostly. But since we're talking edges and linebackers, I'm going to include the other Walker from Georgia as well as an off-the-ball linebacker, Quay Walker. TRAVON is almost like a combination athletically, not production, and this goes to their combine numbers, of J.J. Watt and Von Miller. And I know that sounds remarkable, but that's exactly the kind of numbers he posted. But Quay, the linebacker, I think he's rocketing up boards as well, because you can do so much with him. He has extreme length. He can cover, tight ends out of the slot. He can blitz. He can play off the ball. His numbers were tremendous too. So 2 Walkers from Georgia.
Yeah, I think Walker, TRAVON Walker, I know everybody raved about some of the big guys running. This guy came in at 6'5", 272 and ran a 4.5, 240 at 272 pounds. His three-cone drill was 6.89. Just really easy change of direction for him. And he's got 35-inch arms long. He's just a physical freak. And so I think you're seeing a lot of movement for him up the draft boards here. I know he was considered, an easy first-round draft pick, but now I think you're talking top 5 with him, and that's why I had to put him as my riser at that position. There's even some talk that he could be the top overall pick in this draft, and I don't think anybody would blink an eye if that happened. So really freakish athlete, and to Matt's point, kind of a combination. You could have him put on 10 pounds and play him at defensive end and not, it wouldn't be a problem. You could have him stay at 272 and play outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, and it wouldn't be a problem. There's just so much that you can do with a guy like that.
Some talk about him being first overall on this very program. Well, not this specific one, but our last mock draft, Mock 3.0. You guys probably recall that I mocked him number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, so I couldn't include him as my riser because there's nowhere to go. He's at the top of the list. You can't go higher than first overall. But I do want to mention all the points you guys made about his physicals and how he played and where he played. There was a play in the national championship game, and nobody on the broadcast noticed this because it was just after Jameson Williams got hurt for Alabama, and the freshman kid came in, number 84, and he made a catch, a crossing route, and then he stopped and made N'Kobe Dean miss and wound up getting a 24-yard gain out of it. Guess who made the tackle? TRAVON Walker lining up at defensive tackle, started the pass rush, didn't get there, saw the ball released, looked around, located it, chased down a wide receiver from well behind the play. Now, the guy was running sideways a little bit to start, but the kind of football instincts and football IQ and the effort and the motor, he checks every box. And if I was Jacksonville, I'd take him number 1 this year, particularly if I had the roster that is currently comprised in Jacksonville. That said, I couldn't make him my riser, so I went with Arnold Ebiketie of Penn State. He's been rising for a while now. Good move transferring to Penn State. He went from second team All-American Athletic Conference to first team All-Big Ten, going from Temple to Penn State. And another one of these guys who's really got a physical skill set, He's not a Native American. He was born in Cameroon. Family got here when he was 12, picked up the game in high school. He's still figuring all this stuff out, but really an intriguing guy coming off the edge, at least initially as a pass rusher. And then as he figures some more stuff out, maybe he can do a whole lot more. He was one of the guys, Dale, at the combine that they had do the conversion drills. Some of the pass rushers asked to drop in coverage, and not a chess piece yet, but a versatile guy for sure.
Yeah, he definitely has the skill set to do those kind of things. And this draft, I mean, there's a lot of those guys that you look at and say, boy, you could do some things with this guy. If I remind people all the time that, TJ Watt was the 9th edge rusher taken in his draft. 9th. There were 8 other guys, edge rushers taken ahead of him. Some of them have worked out. Some of them have not. But he was the best one. So, I mean, you have a similar kind of depth in this one, in this draft as well, with some of those edge guys.
Matt, Dale and I are the ones who agree on the faller. You're the outlier with MYJAI Sanders of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, to his credit, he's helped the Bearcats get where they are over the last couple of years and was a good college player. But, we're not giving credit for what they did in college. You got to project these guys to the pros. And at 6'5", 228, he looks like Mike Evans to me, not an edge defender. And he's just really, really lean. And I don't think he's really adept in playing in space or playing, back going in reverse. So I just don't think he's got enough, sand in his pants to play on the line of scrimmage. And then another thing I've noticed about him, the more I've studied him, is he has a terrible habit of jumping off sides. And in itself, that's definitely bad.
Maybe the wind's behind him, blowing him into the line of scrimmage.
Right. But it also indicates to me that he gets a lot of his production by guessing the snap count and winning with speed. And that's not going to fly at the next level.
It's funny you mentioned the offside thing. Like, interesting little anecdote here. Back when I was in college 100 years ago, I took a class called Football Coaching 101. And the way they did it was each week a different position coach would give the lecture, and then there would be a quiz the next week on last week's stuff, and then you'd learn the new stuff. And Steve Furness, the old defensive lineman from the Steel Curtain, was head coach George Perlis, defensive line coach at Michigan State at the time. So he gave the lecture on defensive linemen, and this stuck with me these many years later. He said, when you play defensive line, it's important, if it's 3rd and 4, not to jump offside.
Doesn't go over real well.
It's good advice, but you got to take it. I guess is the point. Matt, did you ever figure out why Sanders lost so much weight between the combine and the pro day?
I heard some rumblings about an illness, but I mean, even just watching his tape at Cincinnati, he's very lean and doesn't have a real thick, defined, heavy lower body, and can just get pushed around. And the league's just too physical.
Dale, you and I agree that the faller is David OJABO, although I don't think he's going to fall as much as you'd expect a guy that tore his Achilles on the pro day to fall. This guy is fascinating to me. I think he is underrated. I know Hutchinson's a great player, but I think Hutchinson's been anointed to a certain extent for whatever reason. I think OJABO's got miles and miles of upside. He's just getting started. I'm curious to see how far he does fall. I think he will a little bit, but I'm not ready to say he doesn't get out of the first round. In fact, in mock 3.0, Matt and I had him going to Detroit at 32.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting. I had him as number 3 on my original triple take at the edge rusher position. He's not going to go there. I think he ends up being the 6th or 7th edge rusher taken. And so the difference there is that, being a potential top 10 pick to being somewhere in the 20s probably. So that's a pretty big fall, and it's going to cost him a lot of money through no fault of his own. He tore his Achilles tendon at his pro day workout. So, it's kind of a cautionary tale. I know some guys since then haven't worked out at their pro days because of that, what happened to him, because they saw it's probably going to end up costing him a couple $1 million. And it's unfortunate, but it is part of the process here. There's always somebody, we've seen this in the past where guys have gotten hurt and fallen out of the first round. I think he's too freaky, and I think we know more about Achilles injuries than we used to, and I think they're much more treatable. It used to be if you tore your Achilles, it was going to be 2 years before you were back. Now we're seeing guys come back the same season. He should play at some point this season. but he was a raw prospect to begin with. So I do think there's some value to using that 5th-year option with a guy like OJABO as opposed to taking him in the 2nd round, and then you've only got him for 4 years, and the first year is kind of going to be a wash to a certain degree. So if you get that 5th-year option with him, I think it makes a big difference.
Again, I think the upside for this kid is almost I
mean, he's a 1-year player at Michigan, really.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of untapped potential there.
I'm going to stay in the Big Ten Conference for my sleeper, BOYE MAFE of Minnesota, who's making a lot of noise, and a guy who kind of started figuring it out in the latter stages of the 2021 season. Then he had a great Senior Bowl, and then he had a really good combine. Matt, we were talking in a previous episode, and Dale mentioned this as well, about how some of these guys are afterthoughts where in any other quote-unquote normal year, they'd be stars. But they were just great. They weren't freaky. But this kid seems to have a knack to me. He's figured out how not to run 10 yards behind the quarterback and take yourself too deep. He's figured out how to attack with his hands when he gets there. 6'4", 261. Don't know if he's going to sneak into the first round or not. Probably not. But somebody's going to get great value. I
think he has a chance. I mean, I think again, I'll bring it up. TJ Watt was the 9th edge rusher taking in 2017. It wouldn't surprise me if we see that many edge rushers go again this year, 8 or 9. So there's a shot that a guy like BOYE could find his way into the first round. And typically, if those guys are going in that later part, they're going to a team that made the playoffs last year. And so it ends up being a pretty good situation for them.
Yeah, situational, maybe not as much pressure. You don't have to get thrown right in. I mean,
there's going to be all kinds of pressure on Aiden Hutchinson, Thibodeau to come out and be stars right away. Where a guy like MAFE or even OJABO at this point, they can take their time.
Mm-hmm. Dale, let's stick with you and get your sleeper. Is this pick made in honor of Ben Roethlisberger?
It's the same school, Dominique Robinson of Miami of Ohio. But he was, again, one of a guy that I didn't know much about going to the Senior Bowl, and really had a good week of practices down there. 6'5", 253 at the combine. He weighed in a little heavier than that at his pro day. But he had a 4'7", 240, a 41-inch vertical at 6'5", 253. I mean, get out of here with that. At his pro day, he had a 4'19" short shuttle, which was really good.
What was that vertical again?
41 inches.
Yeah. Does Calipari know this?
Somebody on the Miami of Ohio basketball team should have known that. He was a wide receiver when he first got there. So his first 2 years on campus, he played wide receiver and caught 27 passes. So there's a little bit of Joey Porter going on here. Joey Porter was a wide receiver at Colorado State when he got there and converted to outside linebacker, defensive end, and then outside linebacker for the Steelers. I see some of that with Dominique Robinson. Didn't have great production in college. So there is a little bit of questions there. But again, that short shuttle, 4.19, that's 92nd percentile for somebody that size. I mean, he can move and jump, and he's an athlete. Very raw at the position, but you could do some stuff with him if you get him into the right program.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Matt, I got a little ahead of myself. I was looking at your selection, Josh Paschal of Kentucky. And Dale, that's why I referenced Calipari to you.
Calipari has been known to pluck some guys from other schools too.
I false started. I beat the snap count, but some intriguing guys, Matt, on both sides of the trenches at Kentucky in recent seasons.
Yeah, and Pascal's a real easy guy to root for, too. He's a guy you want on your football team. He's the only 3-time captain in Kentucky's history. He came back from a malignant melanoma on his foot back in 2018 and has been really productive since. He's almost like a shorter version of Bud Dupree in terms of body type. He's really, really thick. He plays extremely hard, really difficult to move off the edge. I mean, he's just really easy to like.
Yeah, that's good stuff as well. And that's one of those positions. Dale, how many? TJ Watt was the 9th guy?
The 9th guy in 2017.
I wonder how the 10th one will fare this year, 5 years from now. It seems like there's a lot of them again. And it's going to be really interesting to see not only where these guys go, but if they go to a good situation, if it's the right fit. Presumably that's what teams draft for, but sometimes they get a little caught up in, I think, chasing the name or the
letter on the jersey. Yeah.
The recognition, as opposed to, well, this guy really does what we want to do. But a lot of athletes out there, a lot of big guys that can run and jump. Good luck, quarterbacks, moving forward. That's going to do it for this edition of the Triple Take. I want to remind everyone that you can get these and all other like programs on all of the Steelers' social media platforms. You can catch Matt and Dale conspiring how to agree on subsequent Take Two reviews of the positions. You can catch that on The Drive on SNR. Thanks to everyone for joining us today, however, and wherever you found us. Thanks for making that happen. Until next time, for Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley, I'm Mike Prisuta. This has been the NFL Draft Triple Take presented by UPMC.